Sophie's eyes searched his face as if she were looking for cracks in a wall she had once known by heart. Tristan did not look away. "A part of me will always love you," he repeated, quieter this time, as if the admission weighed more than he had anticipated. "But that doesn't mean what you think it means." Sophie let out a breath that trembled at the edges. "It means you're confused." "No," he said. "It means I'm human." There was a difference, and for once he wished she could see it. Across the room, his wife stood near the tall window, speaking politely with one of the event organizers. She wasn't smiling as brightly as usual. She was aware. She had always been aware of Sophie's presence in his life, even before she knew the details. Tristan noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. Sophie followed his gaze. "She looks uncomfortable." "She has every reason to be," he replied evenly. "You cornered her at lunch. Now you're cornering me." "I'm not cornering you. I'm asking for honesty." "You're asking for validation," he corrected. Her expression hardened. "You want me to say I married her because I couldn't have you. You want me to say she's temporary and you were permanent. But that wouldn't be honest." "Then what is honest?" Sophie demanded. Tristan ran a hand through his hair, the old habit returning under pressure. "Honest is that I loved you the way I knew how at the time. Honest is that you wanted something I wasn't ready to give. Honest is that when you left, it broke something in me. And honest is that when I met her, she didn't demand pieces of me. She simply stood there and waited." Sophie's jaw tightened. "So she's convenient." "No," he said firmly. "She's patient. And that's enough for you?" "It was," he answered. "It is." Sophie studied him, trying to find the arrogance she used to spar with, the cool detachment that had once frustrated her. Instead, she found something steadier. Something resolved. "You've changed," she said. "Yes." "Because of her." "Because of loss," he replied. "And because of her." There was a long pause between them, thick with everything unsaid. "You know," Sophie said slowly, "when I saw those photos, I thought you were performing. I thought you were trying to prove something." "I wasn't proving anything," he said. "I was learning." "Learning what?" "That not every relationship has to feel like a negotiation." The words stung more than he intended. Sophie crossed her arms. "So I was a negotiation." "You were a challenge," he corrected gently. "You were ambitious and brilliant and always 10 steps ahead. Being with you felt like trying to earn something every day. And that was bad. It was exhausting." She swallowed. "You liked that about me once." "I admired it," he said. "There's a difference." Silence settled again, this time less volatile and more reflective. Across the hall, laughter rose from a group near the buffet table. The false fire alarm had dispersed the crowd earlier, but most had returned, determined not to let the evening dissolve entirely. Tristan's wife glanced toward him again. Their eyes met briefly. There was a question there, but also trust. Sophie saw it. "She trusts you," Sophie murmured. "She does." "Does she know you still love me?" Tristan didn't hesitate. "Yes." That surprised her. And she's fine with that. She understands that love doesn't evaporate just because circumstances change. Sophie looked down at her hands. For a moment, she seemed smaller than he remembered. "You never said that to me," she said quietly. "I didn't know it then. You're saying you learned how to love properly after I left." "I'm saying I learned what I was doing wrong." "And what was that?" "I kept treating love like something that needed to fit into my schedule." Sophie laughed bitterly. "That sounds about right. It wasn't fair to you." She looked up again. "But it was fair to her." "No," he admitted. "It wasn't fair to her either. She just chose to stay while I figured it out." Sophie shook her head slowly. "I gave you ultimatums because I was tired of waiting." "I know. And she didn't. She didn't have to." "Why?" "Because she wasn't competing with my work," he said. "She was part of my life." Sophie stared at him, and for the first time, there was no accusation in her expression, only realization. Maybe I was always competing, she whispered. You were, he said softly. With everything. And you liked winning too much. He gave a faint smile. Probably. They stood there, two people who had once imagined forever, now dissecting the remains of what might have been. So this is it? Sophie asked finally. You're really happy. Tristan looked toward his wife again. She was laughing now, genuinely, at something someone had said. Her hand rested casually on the back of a chair, relaxed. Yes, he said. Sophie nodded slowly. And if I hadn't left? He considered that carefully. I don't know, he answered truthfully. Maybe we would have grown into something better. Or maybe we would have kept tearing at each other until nothing was left. That's not very romantic. It's honest. She sighed. I thought coming here would make things clearer. And did it? Yes, she said after a moment. Just not in the way I expected. He studied her expression, searching for bitterness, but found only fatigue. You're engaged, he reminded her. Yes. Do you love him? Sophie hesitated. That's not the same answer you just gave me, Tristan observed. It's different. How? I don't feel destabilized, she admitted. It's calm. Predictable. That doesn't sound terrible. It doesn't sound like us either. He gave a small, knowing nod. We were never calm. No, she agreed. They shared a faint smile at that. Across the room, Tristan's wife began making her way toward them. Not hurried. Not possessive. Simply approaching. Sophie noticed. She's coming over. She has every right to. Sophie straightened her posture. When Tristan's wife reached them, her expression was composed, but her eyes flicked briefly between them. Am I interrupting? She asked politely. No, Tristan said. We were just finishing. Sophie extended her hand. I don't believe we've formally met. His wife took it. We have. Briefly. At lunch, Sophie acknowledged. Yes. There was a quiet strength in Tristan's wife's voice that hadn't been there before. Not fragile. Not threatened. I owe you an apology, Sophie said unexpectedly. Tristan blinked. For what? His wife asked. For assuming things about your marriage, Sophie replied. And for speaking about you disrespectfully. The admission surprised them both. His wife studied her carefully. Thank you. Sophie turned back to Tristan. You've changed, she repeated. But so have I. He inclined his head slightly. I hope you find what you're looking for, he said. I think I just did, she replied. There was no dramatic farewell. No lingering touch. Just a quiet understanding. Sophie walked away. Tristan exhaled slowly, only now realizing how tightly he had been holding himself. His wife looked at him. Are you all right? Yes. Do you need a minute? No, he said gently. I'm good. She searched his face, as if verifying the truth of it. What did she want? She asked. Closure, he answered. I think. And did she get it? I think we both did. She nodded slowly. You told her you loved her, she said, not accusing, just confirming. Yes. And that it doesn't change what I feel for you. Her eyes softened slightly. I know, she said. He studied her carefully. Does it bother you? It would have, she admitted. If you had denied it. He frowned slightly. Why? Because pretending the past doesn't exist makes the present fragile. He stared at her for a moment. You're extraordinary, he said quietly. She raised an eyebrow. That's a suspicious compliment. It's not. It's overdue. She crossed her arms playfully. So you're not secretly longing for dramatic tension and unresolved feelings? He smiled faintly. I've had enough drama for a lifetime. She stepped closer to him. Good. He lowered his voice slightly. You heard part of that conversation, didn't you? Enough. And I trust you, she said simply. The words settled between them, steady and solid. I don't want you to ever feel second, he said. I don't, she replied. You did once. Briefly, she admitted. But not because of her. Then why? Because I wasn't sure if you married me for the right reasons. He didn't flinch. That's fair. And now? Now I know I did, he said. She studied him carefully. When did you become this self-aware? Recently, he answered dryly. She laughed softly. Across the room, the crowd was thinning again. People were collecting coats, exchanging final pleasantries. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. What? Marrying me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Not once. Not even when I steal the blankets. Especially not then. She smiled. You're very convincing, she said. I'm very certain. There was something different in the air now. Less tension. More clarity. Round 2. She teased lightly. He chuckled. Behave yourself. People are watching. She tilted her head. So let them. I'm your wife. Real wife, he corrected. She pretended to consider it. I suppose the certificate agrees. He leaned in slightly. It does. She shook her head with a faint smile. You're impossible. And you married me anyway. Yes, she said. I did. They began walking toward the exit together. As they reached the doors, she paused. Tristan. Yes. If she hadn't come tonight, would you have wondered? He considered that carefully. No, he said finally. I don't wonder anymore. She studied his face, searching for hesitation, but found none. Good, she said. Outside, the night air was cool, crisp against their skin. The earlier alarm had left the pavement slightly damp from the sprinklers, but the sky above was clear. He slipped his hand into hers without thinking. This time there was no tension. No unfinished argument hovering at the edges. Just forward movement. Behind them, the lights of the building dimmed as the last of the guests exited. His wife squeezed his hand gently. You know, she said, if you ever call me Muffin again, I might reconsider this marriage. He laughed quietly. Duly noted. And sweetheart is acceptable, she added. We'll negotiate. She rolled her eyes playfully. As they walked toward the car, Tristan glanced back once, not out of longing, but out of habit. The door had already closed. He turned forward again. His wife caught the movement. Everything all right? Everything's exactly where it should be, he replied. They drove home in comfortable silence, the kind that no longer felt like something to fill. The city lights slipped past the windows in long ribbons of gold and white. His wife rested her elbow against the door, fingers lightly brushing her chin as she watched the passing streets. Tristan kept one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting on the center console, close enough that their fingers occasionally touched when the car shifted. It was subtle, intentional. You're thinking, she said quietly. I usually am. About her. He didn't rush to answer. About us. She turned her head slightly, studying him. That's a safer answer. It's the honest one. She accepted that. There was something different in the space between them tonight. Not distance. Not tension. Just awareness. The kind that comes after something unresolved finally has edges. I didn't like hearing you say you'll always love her, she admitted. I know. But I respect that you didn't pretend otherwise. He glanced at her briefly. Would you rather I had? No, she said. I just needed to understand where I stand. And do you? She nodded once. I do. They stopped at a red light. The glow reflected softly against the windshield. You don't compete with ghosts, he said after a moment. I'm not trying to. Good. The light turned green. When they reached home, the house was quiet. The hallway light had been left on, casting a warm, welcoming glow across the floor. She slipped off her heels near the door, sighing softly as her feet touched the cool tile. I'm exhausted, she murmured. Emotionally or socially? Both. He loosened his tie, draping it over the back of a chair. There was no rush, no immediate continuation of playful tension. Just two people decompressing. She walked into the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. He joined her, leaning lightly against the counter. "Did you ever think you'd see her again?" she asked. "No. And are you glad you did?" He considered the question carefully. "Yes." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Because now there's no version of that story left unfinished," he explained. "It's not an open door anymore." She took a sip of water, watching him over the rim of the glass. "I don't want to be your safe choice," she said suddenly. "You're not. I don't want to be the person who stayed when someone else walked away." "You're not that either." She set the glass down. "Then what am I?" He stepped closer, not dramatically, just enough that the space between them narrowed. "You're the person who saw me clearly," he said. "And stayed anyway." That doesn't sound romantic. It's stronger than romantic. She held his gaze. "Were you trying to prove something when you married me?" she asked softly. "No. Not even a little." "No," he repeated. He didn't hesitate, and she noticed. "I married you because when you're in a room, I don't feel like I have to perform." The words settled into her expression slowly. "With Sophie," he continued carefully, "I was always slightly on edge. Like if I stopped impressing her, she'd leave. And with me, you stay when I'm quiet." She swallowed. "You stayed when I was distant," he added. "That wasn't easy," she admitted. "I know." There was a vulnerability in the room now that hadn't been there before. Not fragile, but exposed. She leaned back against the counter, folding her arms loosely. "I don't want to be patient forever," she said. "You won't be. You promise." "Yes." "How do you know?" "Because I'm not that man anymore." She studied him carefully, searching for arrogance, but finding none. "What changed you?" she asked. "You did," he said simply. "And losing her." She nodded slowly. "I needed to lose something I thought I wanted," he continued. "To understand what I actually needed." "And what was that?" "Stability," he replied. "Not boredom. Not predictability. Just someone who doesn't treat love like a competition." She exhaled softly. "I never wanted to compete," she said. "You didn't." They stood there for a long moment. Then she reached for him first. Her fingers caught the front of his shirt, tugging him closer just slightly. "I don't want to talk about her any more tonight," she said. "Then we won't." He brushed his thumb lightly against her waist, slow and deliberate. "No pressure," she added quietly, a faint smile touching her lips. "If it happens, it happens." He smiled back. "Deal." She stepped away first, walking toward the staircase. "Coming?" she asked casually. "I live here," he replied. Good answer. Upstairs, the bedroom felt calmer than the evening had. The bed still slightly unmade from the morning. The curtains drawn halfway. She paused near the dresser, removing her earrings carefully. Tristan watched her for a moment. "Can I still touch you?" he asked softly. She glanced at him in the mirror. "Define touch." He crossed the room slowly. "This," he said, brushing a loose strand of hair from her shoulder. "Yes." "And this." His hand slid lightly along her waist. "Yes." "And this." He pressed a gentle kiss against her neck. She closed her eyes briefly. "Yes." There was no urgency, no frantic attempt to prove anything. Just familiarity layered with intention. "You know," she murmured, "for someone who claims he doesn't like public displays of affection, you've become bold." "I'm selective," he corrected. She turned to face him fully now. "I don't want to feel like I won tonight," she said. "This isn't a game." "It used to be." He nodded once. "It did. And now? Now it's a choice." She searched his face again. "You're certain?" she asked. "Yes." She rested her palm lightly against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath. "I don't want to build something on insecurity," she said. "We won't." "And if she comes back again?" "She won't." "You can't know that." "No," he admitted. "But I know I won't open that door." Her expression softened. "That matters," she said. He leaned his forehead gently against hers. "Do you trust me?" he asked. "Yes." There was no hesitation. He smiled faintly. "Good." She pulled back just enough to look at him. "You don't get to be smug about that." "I'm not smug. You're close." He laughed quietly. She stepped around him, walking toward the bed, sitting at the edge. "Tell me something," she said. "What? If I had given you an ultimatum back then, before we were married, what would you have done?" He thought about it carefully. "I would have resented you." "Why?" "Because I didn't like being cornered. And now I understand why people need reassurance." She nodded slowly. "I don't want to corner you," she said. "You don't. I just want to know that I matter." "You do. More than your work." "Yes. More than your pride." He hesitated only a fraction of a second. "Yes." She caught it. "You hesitated." "I was choosing honesty," he said. "Pride dies slowly." That earned a small smile from her. "I appreciate the transparency." He sat beside her. "You matter more than the image I built of myself," he clarified. "That's what I meant." "That's better." She leaned slightly into him. "Tonight could have gone very differently," she said. "I know. You could have doubted." "I didn't." "You could have lied." "I didn't." She exhaled slowly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not making me feel foolish." "You're not." She tilted her head slightly. "You're very calm about all this." "I've already fought that battle," he said quietly. "There's nothing left to fight." She studied him for a long moment. "I think," she said carefully, "that part of me was afraid you'd look at her and remember something better." He shook his head gently. "I looked at her and remembered something unfinished," he replied. "There's a difference. And now it's finished." She absorbed that. He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers slowly. "Are we okay?" he asked. She squeezed his hand lightly. "We're learning," she said. "I can work with that." She leaned back onto the bed, pulling him with her slightly. "No pressure," she reminded him again, softer this time. He smiled faintly. "I remember." They lay there for a while, facing each other. "You're not a simpleton," he said suddenly. She blinked. "What?" "She called you that." Her eyes darkened slightly. "I know. You're not." "I didn't think I was." "Good." She studied his face. "Did that bother you?" he asked. "No," she said honestly. "What bothered me was wondering if you agreed." "I didn't. I know that now." He brushed his thumb gently along her jaw. "I don't need you to be classy and sophisticated," he said. "I need you to be steady." "I can be steady." "I know. And occasionally dramatic." "That too." She smiled faintly. "Tristan." "Yes. If one day I stop being patient, will you notice?" "Yes. And I won't let it get that far." She nodded slowly. Outside, the city hummed faintly in the distance. Inside, the room felt insulated from it all. "You don't wonder anymore," she said quietly, recalling his words from earlier. "No." She studied him carefully. "I don't either," she admitted. That caught his attention. "You don't?" "No." "About what?" "About whether you chose me by accident." He smiled softly. "I didn't." "I know." They lay there in quiet understanding. There were no dramatic declarations left to make. No grand gestures required. Just the steady rhythm of two people choosing each other in the aftermath of something that could have unsettled them. She traced lazy patterns against his shirt. "So," she said lightly, "about round two." He raised an eyebrow. "Rather promising," he replied. She laughed softly. "Behave yourself," she murmured. "You started it." "Did I?" "Yes." She leaned in closer. "Good," she whispered. Morning arrived gently, filtered through the thin line where the curtains hadn't quite met. She woke first. For a moment she simply lay there, watching him. Tristan slept on his side, One arm stretched across the space between them as if even unconscious he was aware of where she should be. She studied his face the way she sometimes did when she needed reassurance without asking for it. The faint crease between his brows was gone. His jaw wasn't tight. He looked younger like this. Unburdened. Careful not to wake him, she slipped out from under his arm and padded quietly toward the bathroom. The mirror greeted her with honesty. She washed her face slowly, letting the cool water clear the remnants of last night's emotions. Seeing Sophie again had unsettled something in her she hadn't fully acknowledged before. Not jealousy exactly. More like comparison. Comparison was dangerous. She dried her face and leaned closer to the mirror. "You're not competing," she murmured softly to herself. "You're building." It felt steadier that way. When she returned to the bedroom, Tristan was awake, propped up slightly on one elbow. "You left," he said, voice still thick with sleep. "I went 10 steps away." "Still counts." She smiled faintly. "Possessive much?" "Selective," he corrected. She crossed her arms lightly. "You're repeating yourself." "It's a good line." She walked back to the bed and sat beside him. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Yes." "That's good." "You." "Better than expected." There was a pause. "Are you all right this morning?" he asked carefully. She appreciated that he didn't pretend the night before hadn't happened. "I am," she said. "Are you?" "Yes." He studied her face. "You look like you're thinking again," he observed. "I am." "About her." "About us," she said, echoing him from the car. He leaned back against the headboard. "Dangerous territory." "Not if we're honest." He nodded slightly. "Go on." She drew in a slow breath. "When she questioned your reasons for marrying me, it stayed with me longer than I expected." His expression shifted. "You don't believe that." "No," she said. "But I wanted to understand why it bothered me. And I realized something." He waited. "I don't want to be the woman you became better for. I want to be the woman you choose while you're already better." He held her gaze steadily. "That's fair," he said. "Are you better?" she asked quietly. He considered it carefully. "I'm trying to be." "That's not the same thing." "No," he agreed. "But it's real." She studied his face for signs of deflection but found none. "You're not marrying a finished product," he continued. "You're marrying someone aware of his flaws." "I don't expect perfection," she said. "I expect effort." "You have it." She nodded once. "Then we're okay." He reached for her hand, brushing his thumb over her knuckles absent-mindedly. "Last night didn't reopen anything," he said. "It closed it." "I know. But you're allowed to feel shaken." "I wasn't shaken," she corrected gently. "Just reminded." "Of what?" "That love can shift." "Yes," he said. "It can. And that sometimes it shifts without warning." "That's true." She watched him carefully. "But ours didn't," he added. "How do you know?" "Because it didn't feel fragile last night," he replied. "It felt tested." She let that settle. And it held. The words softened something inside her. "Do you ever worry," she asked, "that one day I'll decide I want more?" He raised an eyebrow slightly. "More what?" "More passion. More chaos. More a spark." He almost smiled. "You think chaos is sustainable?" "No." "Then why ask?" "Because sometimes chaos feels alive." He shifted closer to her. "Alive doesn't always mean healthy," he said quietly. She met his gaze. "I don't want you to settle for calm if you secretly crave fire." "I don't," she said. "And I don't want you to stay because I'm safe." "I'm not staying because you're safe," she replied firmly. "I'm staying because you're intentional." That caught him off guard. "Intentional," he repeated. "Yes. You think before you speak now. You pause before you react. You don't dismiss my feelings." He gave a faint smile. "That's growth." "It is." He leaned forward, resting his forehead lightly against hers. You make it sound like I was unbearable. You were, she said lightly. He laughed softly. But you're not now. They stayed there for a moment, close and steady. Eventually she pulled back. I should get ready. I have that meeting at 11. I remember. You remember everything? Selective things. She stood and moved toward the closet. He watched her choose her clothes with quiet attention. Can I ask you something? He said. You just did. She glanced at him over her shoulder. Were you intimidated by her? He asked. She paused. No, she said honestly. I was intimidated by your history. He nodded slowly. That makes sense. I don't care if she's sophisticated, she continued. I care that she knew you before I did. And that matters because people tend to romanticize the first great love. He leaned back against the pillows thoughtfully. She wasn't my first, he said. She blinked. What? She was my most intense. Not my first. She turned fully toward him. You've never said that. You never asked. Who was your first? He hesitated slightly. It was years ago. University. It ended quietly. And Sophie was louder. Yes. More dramatic. Yes. She studied his face. And I am different, he said. That's vague. You're steady, he repeated. You're not trying to win me. I shouldn't have to. You don't. She resumed getting dressed, absorbing his words. Do you think she's happy? She asked casually. With her fiancé? Yes. I don't know, he admitted. I hope so. Even after everything? Yes. She glanced at him again. You're kinder than I expected. No, he said. I'm just not angry anymore. That felt important. Anger had been a quiet undercurrent in their early months of marriage. Not explosive but present. Directed at work. At expectations. At himself. It was softer now. She finished dressing and moved toward the vanity. Do you think, she began slowly, that if she hadn't left, you would have eventually married her? He didn't answer immediately. I don't know, he said finally. Maybe. But not for the right reasons. What would those have been? Pressure. Timing. Pride. She nodded thoughtfully. I don't want to be the easier option. You're not easier, he said firmly. You're clearer. She met his eyes in the mirror. Clearer how? I know where I stand with you. And with her. I was always trying to earn something. She softened slightly. I don't want you earning me, she said. I'm not. I want you choosing me. I am. She believed him. That was the difference. He got out of bed and crossed the room slowly. You're overanalyzing this, he said gently. I know. You don't have to guard against a threat that isn't there. I'm not guarding, she replied. I'm just understanding. He placed his hands lightly at her waist. You understand enough, he said. You're my present, not my consolation prize. She turned to face him. You really didn't marry me to spite her? No. Not even subconsciously? No. She searched his expression one more time. If you ever realize otherwise, she said quietly, I need you to tell me. I won't realize otherwise, he replied. Because it's not true. There was no defensiveness in his tone. Just certainty. She leaned into him briefly, resting her head against his chest. Okay, she said softly. He kissed the top of her head. We're not fragile, he murmured. No, she agreed. We're not. A few hours later, the house was quieter again. She had left for her meeting. Tristan remained behind, working from home for the morning. He sat at the dining table with his laptop open, but his focus drifted. Sophie's face flickered briefly in his mind. Not with longing. With clarity. He had loved her once. Intensely. Recklessly. But that version of himself had needed validation through challenge. Through friction. What he had now was different. Not dull. Grounded. His phone buzzed lightly against the table. A message. From an unknown number. He frowned slightly before opening it. It was short. I meant what I said. I hope you're happy. S. He stared at it for a long moment. There was no manipulation in the words. No hidden request. Just finality. He typed a response slowly. I am. I hope you are too. He hesitated only a second before pressing send. And then he set the phone face down. No lingering. No second message. Just closure. Later that evening, when she returned home, she found him in the kitchen preparing dinner. You cook now, she teased. Selective skills, he replied. She set her bag down and stepped closer. How was the meeting? Productive. And your day? Quiet. She studied him carefully. You look settled, she observed. I am. She leaned against the counter beside him. Anything interesting happen? He met her gaze. She texted. Her expression shifted only slightly. And she wished us well. And you? I wished her the same. She nodded slowly. That's it. That's it. No tension. No edge. Just information shared. Thank you for telling me, she said. I don't keep doors half open, he replied. She smiled faintly. I'm glad. He reached for her hand again, as naturally as breathing. You don't need to compete with a memory, he said quietly. I know. And I'm not chasing one. I know that too. They stood there together, not dramatic, not urgent. Just steady. Dinner was simple. Pasta, a salad assembled with more care than precision, and a bottle of wine neither of them had been saving for any particular occasion. The ordinary felt deliberate tonight. Chosen. She watched him move around the kitchen with an ease that hadn't been there a year ago. Back then, he would have checked emails between chopping vegetables, taken calls during dinner, let work hover at the edge of every conversation. Now his phone rested face down on the counter. You're not checking it, she observed. No. Expecting anything urgent? No. She tilted her head slightly. That's new. I know. She took a sip of wine, studying him over the rim of her glass. You used to say stepping away made you anxious. It did. And now staying present feels more important. She didn't respond immediately. You're doing that on purpose, she said after a moment. Yes. For me. For us. He carried the plates to the table, setting them down carefully. She joined him, sitting across from him rather than beside him. It felt intentional. Face to face. You're not trying to prove something, are you? She asked. No. It's okay if you are. I'm not, he repeated calmly. I'm trying to build something sustainable. She twirled her fork lightly through the pasta. Sustainable, she echoed. You don't like that word. It sounds practical. Practical isn't bad. It's not romantic. He leaned back slightly in his chair. You want romance tonight? She met his gaze steadily. I want truth. You have it. She held his eyes for a few seconds longer before looking down at her plate again. You seem lighter, she said. I am. Because of the text? Because I don't feel unfinished anymore. She nodded slowly. I didn't realize you felt unfinished. I didn't either, he admitted. She set her fork down. Do you think I would have been enough without that closure? She asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. That's a dangerous question, he said gently. I'm not asking to trap you. I know. He leaned forward slightly, folding his hands together. You were always enough, he said. The closure wasn't about you. It was about who I used to be. She watched him carefully. Explain. I needed to know I wasn't still holding onto a version of myself that only existed in that relationship. And now you know. Yes. She considered that. You never made me feel second, she said. But you worried about it. Yes. Why? Because intensity is seductive, she admitted. And what you had with her sounded intense. It was. And we're not intense. He gave a faint smile. We are. Just differently. How? We don't explode. We don't threaten to leave when we're hurt. We don't weaponize silence. She raised an eyebrow slightly. That's not very flattering. It's stable, he corrected. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms loosely. Do you miss it? She asked. The chaos? Yes. No. She studied him for any flicker of nostalgia. There's a difference between missing something and remembering it vividly, he continued. I remember it. I don't miss it. She nodded slowly. That's honest. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. After dinner, she cleared the plates while he rinsed them. Their movements overlapped easily. No negotiation needed. When the kitchen was clean, they drifted into the living room. She sat at one end of the sofa, tucking her legs beneath her. He sat beside her, close but not pressing. The lamp cast a soft glow across the room. You know what I realized today, she said quietly. What? I don't want to be the calm after your storm. He turned slightly toward her. You're not. I don't want to feel like I'm benefiting from someone else's mistakes. You're not, he repeated. Then what am I? You're my partner. That's a safe answer. It's a real one. She traced a line along the seam of the cushion with her finger. Sometimes I worry that you love me because I don't demand too much. He frowned slightly. You don't demand too much, he said carefully. You ask for what matters. That's not the same. No, he agreed. It's better. She shifted to face him more fully. If I started demanding more, she said, would you resent it? No. Are you sure? Yes. Because she demanded more. She demanded ultimatums, he corrected. And I don't. You don't threaten to leave when you're afraid. She absorbed that. I never wanted to leave, she said quietly. I know. And you? I don't either. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. You didn't chase her, she said after a while. No. Why not? Because if someone wants to leave, chasing them doesn't change that. And if I left? He didn't hesitate. I would fight for you, he said. She blinked slightly. That sounds contradictory. It's not. Explain. With her, it felt like a power struggle. With you, it would feel like losing something real. She held his gaze. That matters, she said softly. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. You're not a reaction, he said. You're a decision. Her throat tightened slightly. I don't need you to choose me out of fear of being alone, she said. I don't. I don't need you to choose me because I'm easier. I don't. Then why do you choose me? He didn't look away. Because with you, I don't feel like I'm performing, he said. I don't feel like I'm auditioning for affection. I don't feel like I have to prove my worth every day. And with her, it always felt like a test. She studied him carefully. And you liked passing tests. I did. And now, I don't need them. She leaned slightly closer. Do you ever worry I'll get bored? No. Why not? You're not built for boredom. She laughed softly. That's true. He brushed his thumb along her wrist. You challenge me, he added. Without chaos. Yes. How? You call me out without threatening me. You ask questions without trying to win. She considered that. Is that enough? She asked quietly. It is for me. She leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. I don't want to build a marriage on comparison, she murmured. We're not. Are you sure? Yes. Even subconsciously? Yes. She was quiet for a moment. I think part of me needed to see you with her, she admitted. He looked down at her. Why? To understand that it's different. And it is. He smiled faintly. You didn't look undone, she continued. You looked resolved. I was. She lifted her head slightly to meet his eyes. I'm not afraid of her anymore, she said. You shouldn't be. I'm not. He leaned in and kissed her slowly, Deliberately. Not to prove anything. Just because he wanted to. When he pulled back, she smiled faintly. That was intentional, she said. Yes. I appreciate that. They stayed there for a while, the quiet wrapping around them like something protective. Eventually she shifted, standing up. Walk with me, she said. Where? Nowhere specific. They moved toward the balcony, stepping out into the cool evening air. The city stretched below them, lights flickering like distant constellations. She leaned against the railing. Do you think love is supposed to feel certain? She asked. No, he said. I think it's supposed to feel chosen. She considered that. Chosen every day. Yes. Even when it's inconvenient. Yes. Even when it's not intense. Yes. She turned to face him. Then choose me, she said quietly. He stepped closer. I do, he replied. Say it. I choose you. She held his gaze, searching for hesitation. There was none. Again. I choose you. She exhaled slowly. Okay, she said softly. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face. You don't have to compete with history, he murmured. I'm not competing. Good. I'm just building. And I'm building with you. They stood there in silence, watching the city breathe. After a while, she spoke again. If she ever reaches out again, will you tell me? Yes. Without me asking. Yes.